The class dismissed an hour ago and everyone is going.
Oh, I dozed off. I'm just so tired.
The classroom was suffocating. Georgina Richards' head dropped forward, her curls falling like a curtain around her face as exhaustion dragged her under. She hadn't slept in 2 days, working double shifts at the diner, caring for her sick grandmother, surviving on coffee and willpower. She didn't see him enter, didn't feel the air shift, but Kang Min-ho saw her, and something inside him, something he didn't know existed, roared to life. The billionaire heir, untouchable and cold, felt his heart stop at the sight of the exhausted black girl sleeping at her desk, beautiful and broken. And in that moment, he knew. She would be his undoing. His salvation, his everything. Welcome to K-Fairy Tale Stories, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. Min-ho stood frozen in the doorway of the advanced literature classroom, his expensive uniform perfectly pressed, his expression unreadable. He was 21, held back a year due to an extended stay in America, managing his family's overseas operations. Now back in Seoul, finishing his final year at the prestigious Hansong Academy, he was used to people staring, used to whispers, used to fear and admiration in equal measure. But he wasn't used to this. The girl at the back desk, curvy, with rich dark brown skin and thick curls pulled into a messy bun, was completely unaware of his presence. Her head rested on her folded arms, her breathing soft and even. There was a vulnerability to her that made his chest tighten, made something protective and possessive flare inside him. He didn't know her name, didn't know anything about her, but he couldn't look away. "Mr. Kang," the teacher said nervously, bowing. "Welcome back, please take any seat." Min-ho's dark eyes never left the sleeping girl as he walked down the aisle. His footsteps were silent, controlled. He slid into the empty seat directly beside her, ignoring the shocked gasps from other students. Kang Min-ho never sat in the back, never sat beside anyone, until now. The next morning, Georgina woke with a start, realizing she'd slept through most of the class. Panic flooded her as she grabbed her bag and rushed out, mortified. She didn't notice the tall figure watching her from across the hallway, dark eyes tracking her every movement. Min-ho leaned against the lockers, arms crossed over his chest. His best friend, Park Jin-woo, appeared beside him with a knowing smirk. "You've been staring at her for 10 minutes, Jin-woo said. "Who is she?" "Find out everything," Min-ho said quietly, his voice cold and commanding. "Name, background, why she's exhausted, everything." Jin-woo's eyebrows shot up. In all their years of friendship, Min-ho had never shown interest in anyone. "You're serious. Do it today." By that afternoon, Min-ho had a file on his desk. Georgina Richard at 18. Scholarship student, American-born. Moved to Seoul at 15 after her parents died in a car accident. Living with her grandmother, who was battling cancer. Working 2 jobs to afford rent and medical bills. Top grades despite everything. Min-ho's jaw clenched. She was carrying the weight of the world, and she was doing it alone. He made a call. Within an hour, an anonymous donation covered her grandmother's medical expenses for the next year. He arranged for groceries to be delivered to her address weekly. He made sure her scholarship included a living stipend she didn't know she qualified for. All of it untraceable, all of it for her. A few days later, Georgina noticed changes she couldn't explain. The hospital called saying her grandmother's bills were paid. The diner manager gave her reduced hours with the same pay, claiming corporate restructuring. A mysterious scholarship check appeared in her account. That evening, she stayed late in the library, finally able to focus on studying instead of worrying. The building was nearly empty, the silence comforting. She didn't hear him approach until he was standing across from her table. "You shouldn't be here alone this late," Min-ho said, his voice smooth and deep. Georgina's head snapped up. Kang Min-ho. Everyone knew who he was. Heir to the Kang Empire, untouchable, dangerous despite his student status. Rumors said he'd taken over operations of his family's conglomerate while still in school. "I'm fine," she said carefully, her American accent slight but present. "Thank you for your concern." His dark eyes studied her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You fell asleep in class 3 days ago." She flushed with embarrassment. I've been tired. It won't happen again." "Why are you tired, Georgina?" Her name on his lips sent a shiver down her spine. "How do you know my name?" "I know everything about this school." He pulled out the chair across from her and sat without invitation, his presence commanding and overwhelming. "You're working yourself to exhaustion. That's none of your business, she said, trying to sound firm despite her racing heart. It became my business the moment I decided it was. His tone was matter of fact, absolute. You'll quit one of your jobs. Focus on school. Georgina's eyes widened. Excuse me? You can't just... The diner or the convenience store. Choose. I need both jobs. My grandmother. She stopped, realizing she'd said too much. Minho leaned forward, his gaze pinning her in place. Your grandmother's medical expenses are covered. You have a living stipend. You don't need to destroy yourself anymore. The realization hit her like ice water. That was you? Why would you? We don't even know each other. We do now. He stood, adjusting his blazer. Quit one job by tomorrow. I'll know if you don't. He walked away, leaving Georgina stunned and furious and confused, her heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with anger. The following morning, Georgina marched up to Minho in the hallway, her curves drawing attention in her uniform, her expression fierce. You can't just decide things for me, she said, keeping her voice low but intense. I don't need your charity. Minho's expression remained impassive, but his eyes darkened with something heated. It's not charity. Consider it an investment. In what? You. He stepped closer, towering over her, his presence overwhelming. I don't like seeing you exhausted. I don't like watching you struggle. So I fixed it. You don't even know me. Then let me. His voice dropped, intimate and commanding. Have dinner with me tonight. Georgina's breath caught. I what? No. I can't just... 7 o'clock, I'll pick you up. He turned and walked away, as if her agreement was inevitable. She stood there, stunned, as whispers erupted around her. Kang Minho had just publicly claimed her attention, and everyone had noticed. That evening, Georgina told herself she wouldn't go. She'd ignore him, pretend it never happened. But at 7 o'clock sharp, a sleek black car pulled up outside her apartment building, and Minho stepped out wearing a perfectly tailored black suit, looking like sin and power combined. Her grandmother, watching from the window, practically pushed her out the door. That boy is interested in you. Go live a little. Georgina found herself in the passenger seat, the interior luxurious and overwhelming. Minho drove with confident ease, his presence filling the space. Where are we going? She asked, trying to sound casual. Somewhere private. I don't share well. The possessiveness in his tone made heat bloom in her chest. She shouldn't like it, shouldn't feel drawn to his commanding intensity. But she did. He took her to a private restaurant, the kind that required reservations months in advance. They were led to a secluded booth with a view of the city lights. Minho ordered for both of them, his attention never leaving her face. Why are you doing this? Georgina asked, needing to understand. There are 100 girls who would kill for your attention. Why me? Because when I saw you sleeping in that classroom, something changed. His honesty was disarming, his gaze intense. I've never felt protective of anyone before. Never wanted to fix someone's problems. Never cared. But with you, I can't seem to stop myself. Her heart pounded. You don't know anything about me. Then tell me. Everything. Over the next 2 hours, Georgina found herself opening up in ways she never had before. She told him about losing her parents in a car accident when she was 15. About her grandmother taking her in, bringing her to Seoul, loving her fiercely. About juggling work and school and fear and determination. About feeling alone in a country that was beautiful but foreign, where she stood out and sometimes felt invisible at the same time. Minho listened to every word, his expression intense, his hand eventually reaching across the table to cover hers. The touch was electric, sending warmth racing through her veins. You're not alone anymore, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I won't allow it. You can't just decide that, she whispered, but there was no conviction in her words. I already have. The next day at school, everything changed. Minho walked into class and sat beside Georgina again, ignoring the shocked stares. He shared his notes when she missed something. Brought her coffee without asking how she liked it, but somehow getting it perfect. Walked her to her next class despite his own being in the opposite direction. People are staring, Georgina said nervously as they walked through the hallway, acutely aware of the whispers. Let them. Minho's hand settled possessively on the small of her back, the touch burning through her uniform. They need to know you're under my protection now. I'm not a possession, she said, but her voice was breathless. He leaned down, his lips close to her ear. No, you're something far more important. You're mine. The declaration should have angered her. Instead, it made her knees weak. A few days later, Georgina was at her locker when a senior named Jae-sung approached, his smile friendly, but his interest obvious. "Hey, Georgina, right? I'm in your chemistry class. I was wondering if you wanted to study together sometime." Before she could respond, a familiar presence materialized behind her. Minho's hand settled on her hip, possessive and claiming, his body a wall of controlled fury. "She's busy," Minho said, his voice deadly quiet. "Permanently." Jae-sung paled, recognizing the threat in Minho's tone. He backed away quickly, apologizing. Minho turned Georgina around, his eyes blazing. "Did you want to study with him?" The jealousy in his voice was barely contained. "I didn't even answer him," Georgina said, frustrated but secretly thrilled by his possessiveness. "You can't just, 'I can, and I will.'" He stepped closer, backing her against the lockers, his hands on either side of her head, caging her in. "I don't share, Georgina, not your time. Not your attention, not you." Her breath came faster, her body responding to his proximity. "This is crazy, we barely know each other." "Then let me know you better." His voice dropped, rough with desire. "Let me in, stop fighting this." "Fighting what?" "Us, this." His forehead nearly touched hers, his breath warm against her lips. "You feel it too, don't deny it." She couldn't. The attraction between them was magnetic, impossible to ignore, terrifying in its intensity. That weekend, Minho showed up at her apartment unannounced. Her grandmother answered the door, took one look at him, and invited him in with a knowing smile. "So you're the boy who's been making my granddaughter blush," her grandmother said, her eyes twinkling despite her frail appearance. Minho bowed respectfully. "Mrs. Richard, I wanted to meet you properly. Georgina speaks of you often. She hasn't stopped talking about you either," her grandmother said, making Georgina groan with embarrassment. Minho's smile was genuine, transforming his usually cold expression into something warm and devastating. He spent the afternoon with them, charming her grandmother, helping with small repairs around the apartment, and somehow making Georgina fall even harder for him. When her grandmother fell asleep, Minho and Georgina sat on the small balcony, the city lights spread before them. "Thank you," Georgina said softly, "for everything. The medical bills, the time with my grandmother, all of it. You don't need to thank me." His hand found hers in the darkness, their fingers intertwining. "Taking care of you isn't a burden. It's a privilege." She turned to look at him, finding him already watching her with that intense, possessive gaze that made her feel seen and wanted and treasured. "I'm scared," she admitted. "This is happening so fast. I don't know how to handle what I feel when I'm around you." Minho brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles with devastating gentleness. "I'm scared too. I've never felt like this. Never wanted someone the way I want you. But I'm not walking away. I'm all in, Georgina. The question is, will you let me be?" The following week, tension built like a gathering storm. Minho was constantly at her side, possessive and protective, his attention unwavering. He bought her lunch, drove her home, sent her good morning texts that made her smile, called her every night just to hear her voice, but he never pushed for more than she was ready to give, even though the desire between them was palpable, crackling like electricity whenever they touched. One evening, after a particularly long day at school, Minho took her to his penthouse apartment, a stunning space overlooking Seoul, all modern lines and expensive taste. "This is where you live?" Georgina asked, overwhelmed by the luxury. "One of the places." He shrugged off his blazer, loosening his tie. "I wanted you to see it, to know all of me." She walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing at the city below. He came up behind her, his presence warm and solid, his hand settling on her waist. "You're beautiful," he murmured against her ear, making her shiver. "Do you know that? Do you know what you do to me?" She turned in his arms, her hands tentatively touching his chest. "Minho, say it again, my name. I love hearing it from your lips." "Minho," she whispered, and his control visibly frayed. He kissed her then, deeply, passionately, with all the restrained desire he'd been holding back. Georgina melted into him, her body responding with a hunger that matched his own. His hands roamed her curves, reverent and possessive, claiming every inch of her. They stumbled toward the bedroom, shedding clothes between desperate kisses. The tension that had been building for weeks finally exploding into something overwhelming and inevitable. Later, as dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Georgina lay in Minho's arms, her body sated but her mind racing. The night had been intense, passionate, everything she'd never let herself dream of. But fear crept in as the sun rose. What if this was just physical for him? What if now that he'd had her, he'd lose interest? What if she was just another conquest? The thoughts tormented her, grew louder with each passing moment. Before Minho woke, Georgina carefully extracted herself from his embrace, dressed quickly, and slipped out of the penthouse, her heart breaking even as she told herself it was for the best. Better to leave now than wait for him to push her away. Minho woke to an empty bed and cold sheets. For a moment, he thought Georgina was in the bathroom. Then he saw her clothes were gone. Her bag was gone. She'd left. Fury and panic warred inside him. He called her phone, straight to voicemail, texted. No response. He dressed quickly, his mind racing. She'd run from him, from what they'd shared. Did she think so little of what was between them? Did she think he'd let her go? He'd burn the whole city down before he lost her. By that afternoon, Minho had tracked her down to the library, hiding between the stacks like she could escape him. He found her easily, cornering her against the shelves, his expression dark with barely controlled emotion. You left, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. You left me without a word. I thought it would be easier, she started, but he cut her off. Easier for who? You think I'm done with you? That last night meant nothing? He stepped closer, his hands gripping the shelves on either side of her, caging her in. I told you, Georgina, you're mine. One night doesn't change that. 1,000 nights won't change that. Tears filled her eyes. I was scared you'd regret it. Regret me. His expression softened slightly, one hand moving to cup her face with devastating gentleness. The only thing I regret is not making it clearer how much you mean to me. You're not a fling, you're not temporary. You're everything, and I'm not letting you run from this. Minho, her voice broke on his name. I'm in love with you, he said, the confession raw and honest. I have been since the moment I saw you sleeping in that classroom. And I'm not going anywhere, so stop running and let me love you the way you deserve. She broke then, throwing her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. I love you too. God, I love you so much it terrifies me. He held her tightly, his face buried in her hair, his entire body relaxing now that she was back in his arms where she belonged. The next few weeks were bliss. Minho and Georgina were inseparable, their relationship deepening with each passing day. He was gentle with her grandmother, protective of Georgina at school, and openly affectionate in ways that made it clear she was his. But nothing good lasts forever. One evening, Minho received a call that made his blood run cold. His father's enemies, rivals in the business world with connections to dangerous people, had discovered his weakness, Georgina. You need to stay with me, Minho told her that night, his expression grim. Until this is resolved, you're not safe. What's happening? Georgina asked, fear creeping into her voice. People who want to hurt me found out about you. About us. His jaw clenched. I won't let anything happen to you. I'll station guards at your apartment, at the hospital with your grandmother, but you stay with me. Non-negotiable. She wanted to argue, to insist she could take care of herself. But the fear in his eyes, fear for her, stopped her. She nodded, and he pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. A few days later, despite all precautions, everything went wrong. Georgina was leaving school alone, just for a moment, just to grab something from her locker while Minho was in a meeting. 3 men appeared out of nowhere, grabbing her before she could scream, dragging her into a van. Terror consumed her as they drove to an abandoned warehouse. She was bound to a chair, her phone taken, her captors making it clear they planned to use her to manipulate Minho into signing over company assets. He'll come for me, Georgina said, her voice shaking but defiant. And when he does, you'll regret this. The men laughed, not realizing they'd just sealed their fate. Minho discovered Georgina was missing within minutes. His fury was volcanic, terrifying. He made calls, mobilized his security team, used every resource at his disposal. Jinwoo had never seen him like this. Cold, calculated, and absolutely lethal in his determination. We'll find her, Jinwoo promised. We'd better, Minho said, his voice deadly. Because if anything happens to her, I'll burn their entire organization to the ground. There won't be anywhere they can hide. It took 4 hours to locate the warehouse. Minho arrived with a team of highly trained security personnel. but he was the first through the door, his gun drawn, his expression promising death to anyone who touched her. He found Georgina bound but unharmed, her eyes widening with relief when she saw him. The men tried to use her as a shield, but Minho was faster, more ruthless. Within minutes, his team had subdued the kidnappers, and Minho was cutting Georgina's bonds, pulling her into his arms. "I've got you," he murmured, his hands shaking as he held her. "You're safe, I've got you." She clung to him, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling with delayed shock. "I knew you'd come. I knew you wouldn't leave me." "Never," he vowed, his voice breaking. "I'll never leave you. I'll protect you with my life if I have to." The aftermath was intense. Minho dealt with the men who'd taken her with ruthless efficiency, ensuring they'd face full legal consequences, while also dismantling their organization from the inside. His father's rivals learned a harsh lesson. Kang Minho's woman was untouchable. But Minho couldn't shake the fear of how close he'd come to losing her. That night, back in his penthouse with extra security stationed everywhere, he held Georgina close, his control finally breaking. "I can't lose you," he said, his voice raw. "The thought of someone hurting you, of you being taken from me, I can't survive it." "You won't lose me," she promised, her hands cupping his face. "I'm here, I'm safe. We're together." He kissed her then, desperate and claiming, needing to feel her alive and whole in his arms. The night stretched before them, filled with whispered promises and desperate touches, two people clinging to each other in the aftermath of terror, finding solace and love and unbreakable connection. The following morning, Minho woke before Georgina, watching her sleep in the golden light filtering through the curtains. Her curls spread across his pillow, her face peaceful, her hand resting over his heart. The terror of almost losing her still haunted him, made his chest tight with residual fear. He couldn't go through that again, wouldn't survive it. He kissed her forehead gently, careful not to wake her, and slipped out of bed. In his study, he made calls that would change everything. By the time Georgina woke, Minho had already set plans in motion that would ensure her safety permanently. "Good morning," she said, appearing in the doorway wearing his shirt, looking beautiful and vulnerable, and completely his. Minho crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. "Good morning, beautiful. How do you feel?" "Safe," she said simply, her arms wrapping around his waist. "With you I always feel safe." His heart clenched. "You'll always be safe." "I promise you that." By the end of the week, the threat had been completely eliminated. Minho's father, impressed by his son's decisive handling of the situation, officially handed over more control of the company. At 21, Minho became one of the youngest CEOs in Seoul's business world, his reputation shifting from promising heir to formidable leader. But none of it mattered as much as the girl waiting for him at home. Georgina had moved into his penthouse temporarily while her apartment's security was upgraded. But as days turned into weeks, neither of them mentioned her leaving. Her clothes filled his closet. Her textbooks covered his dining table. Her laughter filled rooms that had been silent for too long. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony watching the sunset paint Seoul in shades of gold and amber, Minho pulled her closer against his side. "I should probably go back to my apartment soon," Georgina said, though her tone lacked conviction. She traced patterns on his chest absently, her body relaxed against his. Minho's arm tightened around her, his jaw clenching slightly. "Why?" "Because I can't live here forever. People will talk. Your family might not approve. I have my own space. Let them talk." He turned her to face him, his dark eyes intense. "My family already adores you. My father respects you. My mother calls you weekly. And your space?" He gestured around the penthouse. "This is your space now. I don't want you to leave. Minho, move in with me, officially." His voice was commanding but vulnerable, a combination that made her heart race. "Not because of safety, not temporarily. Because I want you here. Because waking up without you feels wrong. Because this place only feels like home when you're in it." Tears filled her eyes as she looked at him. This powerful man who'd become so soft with her, so open, so completely devoted. "You really mean that? Every word?" He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away the tears that had started falling. "I love you, Georgina. I want to wake up beside you every morning, come home to you every night, build a life with you. Not someday, now, say yes." "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, I'll move in with you. I love you so much." He kissed her with such tenderness it made her heart ache, his hands gentle as they held her face like she was the most precious thing in his world. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless, foreheads pressed together. "You've made me so happy," he murmured against her lips. "I never knew I could feel this complete."
That weekend, Min-ho helped her move her belongings from her apartment. He insisted on doing most of the heavy lifting himself, despite having a team of movers on standby. Jin-woo showed up to help, teasing them mercilessly about being disgustingly domestic. "I never thought I'd see the day," Jin-woo said, watching Min-ho carefully pack Georgina's books. Kang Min-ho, the ice prince of Seoul, organizing someone else's belongings with a smile on his face. "Shut up and help," Min-ho said, but there was no heat in his words, only contentment. Her grandmother, whose health had improved dramatically with proper treatment and reduced stress, smiled knowingly as she watched them together. The medical care Min-ho had arranged had given her years she wouldn't have had otherwise, and she was determined to see her granddaughter truly happy. Before they left with the last load, she pulled Georgina aside into the small kitchen, her weathered hands gentle as they held her granddaughter's face. "He's a good man," her grandmother said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "He loves you fiercely. I see it in how he looks at you, how he moves heaven and earth to make you smile. Don't let fear keep you from accepting that love fully." "I'm trying, Grandma," Georgina admitted, her voice catching. "But sometimes it feels too good to be true. Like I'll wake up and it'll all be gone. Like something will go wrong and I'll lose him. Life isn't guaranteed, sweetheart. None of us know what tomorrow brings. But love like this? It's worth the risk. It's worth being vulnerable. It's worth believing in." Her grandmother squeezed her hands. "Let yourself be happy. You deserve this. You deserve him. And he deserves you." Georgina hugged her tightly, drawing strength from the woman who'd raised her, who'd taught her resilience and hope. "Thank you for everything, for bringing me here, for loving me, for supporting us. Always, baby. Always." The next few months were the happiest of Georgina's life. She graduated high school with honors, her name called among the top 10 students in her class. Min-ho sat in the front row of the ceremony, pride evident in his expression, his hands coming together in thunderous applause when she walked across the stage. Her grandmother cried happy tears beside him. Jin-woo whistled loudly, earning disapproving looks from other families but making Georgina laugh even as she accepted her diploma. After the ceremony, Min-ho swept her into his arms right there in the auditorium, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around despite the crowd of people watching. "I'm so proud of you," he said fiercely, setting her down but keeping his arms around her waist. "You did this. Despite everything you've been through, every obstacle, you succeeded. You're extraordinary." She kissed him, not caring about the audience, overwhelmed by his support and unwavering belief in her. That evening, Min-ho threw her a graduation party at the penthouse. He'd invited her classmates, his business associates, professors, and friends, an eclectic mix that somehow worked perfectly. The space was decorated elegantly, with a banner congratulating her and tables laden with her favorite foods. But the surprise came later, when the crowd had thinned and only close friends and family remained. Min-ho clinked his glass, drawing everyone's attention, and pulled Georgina to stand beside him. "I want to thank everyone for celebrating Georgina tonight. Her achievement is remarkable, and I'm honored to witness her success." He turned to her, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "Georgina, you've worked incredibly hard for your education. Your grades, your dedication, your brilliance, all of it is your own. But I wanted to make sure financial concerns would never stop you from pursuing your dreams." He handed her the envelope. Inside was an acceptance letter to Seoul National University, her dream school, along with documentation for a full scholarship, covering tuition, books, housing, and living expenses for 4 years. Georgina's hands shook as she read the papers, tears streaming down her face. "Min-ho, I can't. You earned this," he said firmly, his hands on her shoulders. "Your grades qualified you, your essays impressed them, your potential secured the scholarship. I just made sure they knew you were interested, and that nothing would prevent you from accepting." She threw her arms around him, sobbing into his chest as applause erupted around them. He held her tightly, one hand stroking her hair, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "Thank you," she whispered against his chest, "for believing in me, for supporting me, For everything. Always, he promised. I'll always believe in you. That summer, before university started, Minho surprised her with a trip. He'd been mysterious about it, telling her only to pack for warm weather and trust him. When they arrived at the airport, she discovered they were flying to Jeju Island. He'd rented a private villa overlooking the ocean, a stunning property with infinity pools, private beach access, and complete seclusion. For a week, they existed in their own bubble, disconnected from work and responsibilities and the outside world. They swam in the clear blue water, explored hidden beaches and volcanic landscapes, visited local markets, and tried traditional foods. Minho was relaxed in a way she rarely saw, his usual intensity softened by the island atmosphere. He laughed more, touched her constantly, seemed lighter somehow. One afternoon, as they lay on the beach after swimming, Georgina propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. The sun had bronzed his skin, his dark hair was tousled by salt water and wind, and his expression was peaceful as he dozed. "I love you," she said softly, tracing the line of his jaw. His eyes opened, immediately focusing on her with that intensity that always made her breath catch. "I love you more," he said, pulling her down for a kiss that tasted of salt and sunshine and promise. They made love there on the secluded beach, the waves providing privacy and the sound of nature surrounding them. It was passionate and tender and perfect, a moment suspended in time where nothing existed except the two of them. One evening, as they walked along the beach at sunset, Minho seemed nervous. He kept touching his jacket pocket, his usual confidence replaced by something almost anxious. Georgina noticed but said nothing, enjoying the beautiful evening and his hand in hers. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and purple, the waves gentle against the shore. Seabirds called overhead. The air smelled of salt and tropical flowers. It was perfect. Minho suddenly pulled her to a stop, turning her to face him. He took both her hands in his, and she noticed they were trembling slightly. His expression was serious but tender, his dark eyes swimming with emotion. "Georgina, I need to tell you something." Her heart raced, suddenly afraid despite the love she saw in his face. "What is it?" "I've loved you from the moment I saw you sleeping in that classroom. I know I've told you that before, but I need you to understand how completely you've changed my life. Before you, I existed but didn't really live. I went through motions, work, duty, obligation. Everything was cold and calculated and empty." His voice roughened with emotion. "Then I saw you, and something woke up inside me, something I didn't know was sleeping. You made me feel, Georgina. You made me want more than just success and power. You made me want love and family and a future that meant something beyond business deals and profit margins." Tears were already streaming down her face as he continued, his thumbs rubbing circles on her hands. "Every day since then, I've loved you more. Every smile, every laugh, every moment we've shared has made you more essential to my existence. You've changed me in ways I never imagined possible. You've made me better, softer, happier. You've given me a reason beyond everything else. You've given me purpose." He took a shaky breath, his eyes glistening. "I can't imagine my life without you in it. I don't want to. The thought of waking up and not having you beside me, of going through life without your laugh, your touch, your love, it's unbearable." He released one of her hands to pull a velvet box from his pocket, and Georgina's free hand flew to her mouth as realization crashed over her. Minho dropped to one knee in the sand, the sunset painting him in golden light, and opened the box to reveal the most beautiful ring she'd ever seen. "Georgina Richard, you are my everything, my heart, my home, my future. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you, protecting you, supporting your dreams, building a future with you? Will you be my wife, my partner, my forever? Please say yes." She was sobbing now, nodding frantically even as words failed her. Finally, she managed to choke out, "Yes, yes, 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 I love you so much. Yes, I'll marry you." Minho's hands shook as he slid the ring onto her finger, a stunning diamond surrounded by smaller stones in a platinum setting, elegant and timeless and perfect. The moment it was secure, Georgina dropped to her knees in the sand, throwing her arms around him and kissing him with all the love and joy and overwhelming emotion flooding through her. He held her tightly, one hand cradling her head, the other around her waist, and she felt wetness on his cheeks that wasn't from the ocean spray. Minho was crying. This powerful, controlled man was crying with happiness, and it made her love him even more. "You said yes," he murmured against her hair, his voice breaking. "You're going to be my wife. I'm going to be your wife," she repeated, laughing through her tears. "I can't believe this is real. I can't believe you're real. I'm real. This is real. We're real." He pulled back to look at her, cupping her face in his hands, his expression fierce and tender all at once. "And I'm never letting you go. You're mine forever now." "Forever," she agreed, and kissed him again as the sun set behind them, the ocean waves crashing in celebration, the sky ablaze with color as if nature itself was rejoicing in their promise to each other. The engagement sent shockwaves through Seoul's social circles when they returned home. News spread quickly. Kang Min-ho, the untouchable CEO, the ice prince who'd never shown interest in anyone, was marrying a foreign scholarship student. Some whispered scandal. Others questioned his judgment. A few called it inappropriate given their different backgrounds and statuses, but many more called it a fairy tale. Min-ho didn't care about any of it. When reporters tried to question him at business events, he shut them down with cold efficiency. When business partners made inappropriate comments, he made it clear such opinions weren't welcome. When his social circle speculated, he simply stopped attending events where Georgina wasn't equally welcomed. "Let them talk," he said one evening when Georgina expressed worry about negative press affecting his business. They were in his office, her sitting on his desk while he worked, a position that had become routine. "The only opinion that matters is yours. Do you regret saying yes?" "Never," she said fiercely, reaching out to run her fingers through his hair. "I love you. I want to be your wife. I just don't want to cause problems for you, for your company, for your reputation." He caught her hand, bringing it to his lips and kissing her palm, then her wrist, his eyes never leaving hers. "You could never be a problem. You're the solution to everything I didn't know I needed. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." He stood, moving between her legs, his hands on her waist. "Besides, once we're married, they'll have no choice but to accept it. Accept you. Accept us. And they will. Because you're extraordinary, and anyone with sense will see that." She wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. "When did you become such a romantic?" "When I fell in love with you," he said simply, and kissed her until all worries disappeared. That fall, Georgina started at Seoul National University, majoring in international business with a minor in cultural studies. The campus was beautiful and intimidating, filled with some of the brightest students in the country. But she was determined to succeed, to prove she belonged there based on merit, not just because of her connection to Min-ho. Her schedule was demanding early morning classes, afternoon study groups, evening assignments. But Min-ho supported her completely, never demanding her time or attention when she needed to study, always encouraging her ambitions and celebrating her achievements. He attended her presentations when his schedule allowed, sitting in the back of lecture halls and beaming with pride as she delivered flawless reports. He celebrated her high grades with special dinners. He made sure she had the best laptop, the right textbooks, anything she might need to succeed. But more than material support, he gave her emotional encouragement. On nights when she was overwhelmed and stressed, he'd hold her and remind her of her strength. When she doubted herself, he'd list all the ways she was brilliant. When she wanted to quit, he'd talk her through it without pressure, letting her make her own decisions while making sure she knew he'd support whatever she chose. Their engagement remained strong despite their busy schedules. Min-ho ran his empire with ruthless efficiency, expanding into new markets and solidifying the Kang family's position as industry leaders. But he always made time for Georgina, dinner together at least 4 nights a week, no matter how late he had to work. Weekend getaways when possible, stolen moments of peace and connection, daily calls when his work demanded travel, sometimes from opposite sides of the world but always before bed so they could hear each other's voices, and the wedding planning that was constant and joyful and sometimes overwhelming. Min-ho wanted to give her everything, a ceremony that would make her feel like the princess she was to him. They decided on a spring wedding, giving them time to plan properly while allowing Georgina to complete her first year of university. The planning process revealed new sides of Min-ho that made Georgina fall even more deeply in love. He had opinions about flowers, peonies, her favorites. He insisted on live music, a string quartet for the ceremony, a full band for the reception. He debated invitation designs with the stationer for an hour, wanting them to be perfect. "I never knew you cared so much about wedding details," Georgina said one evening, laughing as he studied cake flavors with intense concentration. "I don't care about wedding details," he corrected, looking up with a smile that transformed his usually serious face. "I care about your wedding, our wedding, the day you become my wife. That deserves perfection." Her heart melted, as it did so often with him. "How did I get so lucky? I ask myself that every day," he replied, pulling her onto his lap and kissing her until they forgot about cake flavors entirely. The following spring arrived faster than either expected. The week before the wedding was beautiful chaos, final fittings, rehearsal dinners, family arriving from America. Her grandmother's sisters came, women Georgina hadn't seen since moving to Seoul, bringing with them laughter and stories and connection to her roots. Minho's family was equally involved. His mother, an elegant woman who'd been initially skeptical but had grown to genuinely love Georgina, helped coordinate vendors and managed the guest list. His father, stern but fair, gifted them a substantial wedding present, a beautiful house in one of Seoul's best neighborhoods, big enough for a future family with space for Georgina's grandmother. The rehearsal dinner was intimate and emotional. Jin-woo gave a toast that managed to be both touching and hilarious, bringing up embarrassing stories about Minho's obsession with Georgina from their first meeting. Georgina's grandmother spoke about love, conquering distance and difference, about choosing courage over fear. Minho's father surprised everyone by welcoming Georgina officially to the Kang family, his usually cold expression soft with approval. But the best moment came late in the evening, when Minho pulled Georgina aside to a quiet terrace overlooking the city. "Nervous?" she asked, taking his hand. "Terrified," he admitted with a slight laugh. "Not about marrying you, that's the easiest decision I've ever made, but about being the husband you deserve, about living up to the faith you've put in me. Minho!" She turned to face him fully, her hands on his chest. "You already are everything I need. You're kind, devoted, supportive, loving. You've believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You've protected me, encouraged me, loved me so completely that I've never once doubted my place in your life. That's more than I ever dreamed of having. I want to give you the world," he said softly, his forehead resting against hers. "You already have," she replied. "You've given me yourself. That's everything." He kissed her then, tender and sweet, a promise of all the kisses to come in their future together. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, as if nature itself had conspired to make everything perfect. The ceremony was held at an exclusive estate outside Seoul, with sprawling gardens in full bloom, cherry blossom trees creating natural canopies, and hundreds of guests filling elegant seating arrangements. Minho waited at the altar in a custom black tuxedo, his hands clasped in front of him to hide their trembling. Jin-woo stood beside him as best man, offering quiet encouragement. The string quartet began playing, and Minho's breath caught as the doors opened. Then he saw her, and the entire world stopped. Georgina was breathtaking in a custom wedding gown that had been designed specifically for her body, fitted through the bodice to highlight her curves before flowing into an elegant A-line skirt with a cathedral train. The dress was covered in delicate lace and subtle beading that caught the light with every movement. Her curls were styled into an elegant updo with a few tendrils framing her face, and a delicate veil trailed behind her. Her makeup was natural but beautiful, highlighting her glowing skin and bright eyes. But it was her smile, radiant, joyful, full of love and certainty, that made Minho's breath catch and tears spring to his eyes. She walked down the aisle on her grandmother's arm, moving slowly to the music, her eyes locked on Minho's. He couldn't look away, couldn't blink, couldn't do anything but stare at the woman who was about to become his wife. When she reached him, her grandmother placed Georgina's hand in Minho's, squeezing both before stepping back. The officiant began speaking, but Minho barely heard the words. He was lost in Georgina's eyes, in the moment, in the overwhelming reality that this incredible woman had chosen him. "Minho," the officiant prompted gently, and he realized it was time for his vows. He took a shaky breath, his hands holding hers tightly, and began to speak from his heart. "Georgina, when I saw you that first day, I didn't know my life was about to change forever. I didn't know that the exhausted, beautiful girl sleeping in a classroom would become my entire world. But you did. You changed everything. You taught me what love really means, not possession or control, but partnership and support, and choosing someone every single day. You taught me that being vulnerable isn't weakness, it's strength. That letting someone in doesn't diminish you, it completes you. His voice broke slightly, but he continued, I promise to love you fiercely for the rest of my life, to support your dreams as passionately as you support mine, to protect you, cherish you, respect you, and choose you every single day, to be your safe place, your partner, your best friend, to build a life with you that honors both of our cultures, both of our dreams, to give you a family full of love and laughter. I promise to be worthy of the gift you've given me, your heart, your trust, your forever. I love you, Georgina. Today, tomorrow, always. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience by the time he finished. Georgina was crying openly, her smile brilliant despite the tears. Then it was her turn. She squeezed his hands, took a steadying breath, and began, Min-ho, you came into my life when I'd forgotten what it felt like to be cared for, to be seen, to matter to someone. You looked at me, really looked at me, and saw not just someone struggling, but someone worth fighting for. You believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. You gave me space to grow while giving me a foundation to stand on. You loved me so completely that I learned to love myself too. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice remained strong. I promise to love you with everything I am, to be your partner in all things, in joy and difficulty, in success and challenge, to support your dreams and ambitions as you've supported mine, to remind you of your softness when the world demands your hardness, to build a home with you where love is the foundation of everything, to honor your family while bringing my own traditions into our life together, to give you children who know they're cherished. I promise to choose you every single day for the rest of my life. I love you, Min-ho, completely, eternally, without reservation. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Min-ho didn't wait for permission. He pulled Georgina into his arms and kissed her with such passion and love that applause erupted from the guests, some cheering, some crying, everyone moved by the obvious depth of emotion between the couple. Mrs. Kang, Min-ho murmured against her lips, his voice thick with emotion. My wife. Finally. Mr. Kang, she replied, laughing and crying at once. My husband. Forever. They walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, grinning like fools, beginning their forever in front of everyone they loved. The reception was elegant and joyous, held in a beautifully decorated ballroom with flowers cascading from every surface, candles creating warm ambiance, and tables set with crystal and china. They danced their first dance to a song Min-ho had chosen specifically for her, something romantic about finding home in another person, about two souls recognizing each other across distance and time. He held her close as they swayed, his lips against her ear as he whispered all the ways he planned to love her forever, making her blush and laugh and cling to him tighter. Speeches were given throughout the evening. Jinwoo told embarrassing stories about Min-ho's immediate obsession with Georgina from day one, how he'd become a different person, softer, happier, more human the moment she entered his life. Her grandmother blessed their union with tears of joy, speaking about love that transcends difference, about courage and faith and choosing happiness. Min-ho's father, stern but clearly moved, welcomed Georgina to the family officially, promising his support and protection as she became a true Kang. But the best moment came late in the evening, when most guests had left or were occupied on the dance floor. Min-ho pulled Georgina aside to a private terrace overlooking the estate's gardens, the night air warm and filled with the scent of flowers. I have something for you, he said, handing her an envelope with slightly shaking hands. Another gift? Georgina asked, laughing softly. You've already given me so much. This is for us, for our future. Inside was a deed to the house his father had gifted them, a beautiful property with space for a growing family, a separate guest house for her grandmother, and enough security to ensure their safety. But attached to it were additional documents, plans for renovations based on her preferences, furniture selections she'd mentioned loving, a garden designed around flowers she'd said reminded her of home. You planned all this? She asked, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness. I wanted our home to be perfect for you, he said softly. Every detail chosen with you in mind. A place where you feel safe and loved and at home, where we'll build our life together, raise our family, create memories that will last a lifetime. Georgina threw her arms around him, tears streaming down her face for what felt like the 100th time that day. It's perfect. You're perfect. How did I get so lucky? I ask myself that every single day. He held her tightly, one hand cradling her head against his chest, the other wrapped around her waist. Thank you for saying yes, for loving me, for becoming my wife. I promise I'll spend every day of my life making sure you never regret it. I could never regret you, she said fiercely, pulling back to look at him. You're my everything. Min-ho, my home, my heart, my future. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Don't be scared, he murmured, kissing her forehead, her nose, her lips. I've got you, always. Their honeymoon was 3 weeks in Italy, a trip Min-ho had planned meticulously. They explored Rome's ancient ruins and romantic piazzas, ate incredible pasta and drank wine in Tuscany, wandered through Florence's art galleries, and relaxed in a villa on the Amalfi Coast. For 3 perfect weeks, they existed in their own bubble. No work, no responsibilities, no demands from the outside world. Just them, discovering new places together, making love in luxurious hotels with views of ancient cities and sparkling coastlines, talking about dreams and plans and the future they'd build together. One evening in their Amalfi villa, they sat on the terrace as the sun set over the Mediterranean, turning the water gold and pink. Min-ho had been unusually quiet, his hand resting on Georgina's stomach absently as they watched the sky change colors. What are you thinking about? She asked, threading her fingers through his. Children, he admitted, turning to look at her. Our future. How many children do you want? Georgina felt warmth spread through her chest at the question, at the vulnerable hope in his eyes. 2, maybe 3. What about you? As many as you'll give me. He shifted to face her more fully, his expression serious but tender. I want a house full of life and laughter. I want to give our children everything: love, security, opportunity, the kind of childhood where they never doubt they're wanted and cherished. I want to be present in a way my father wasn't. I want them to have both of our cultures, both of our languages, both of our worlds. You'll be an amazing father, she said, cupping his face in her hands. Just like you're an amazing husband. Our children will be so lucky to have you. We'll be lucky to have them, he corrected, pulling her onto his lap. To create life together, to raise humans who hopefully have your kindness and strength and beauty. And your intelligence and determination and loyalty, she added. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Deal. Now come here. I want to practice. She laughed as he carried her inside, their dinner forgotten in favor of making love slowly and thoroughly, showing each other with their bodies what words couldn't fully express: devotion, desire, commitment, and boundless love. When they returned to Seoul, tanned and relaxed and thoroughly happy, life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Georgina continued her studies at Seoul National University while Min-ho ran his company, expanding operations and solidifying their position as industry leaders. They moved into their new house, a stunning property that had been renovated exactly to Georgina's specifications while they were on their honeymoon. Her grandmother moved into the guest house on the property, giving her independence while keeping her close enough for daily visits. They hosted dinner parties, bringing together Min-ho's business associates and Georgina's university friends in gatherings that were surprisingly successful despite the diverse crowd. They adopted a dog, a golden retriever puppy, that Georgina named Hope, who became Min-ho's unexpected companion and source of stress relief after difficult workdays. Life was good, better than good. It was everything they'd dreamed of. 6 months after their wedding, on a crisp autumn morning, Georgina woke feeling nauseous. It passed quickly, but returned the next day, and the next. By the 4th day, she took a test, her hands shaking as she waited for results. Positive. She stared at the test for a long moment, joy and terror and overwhelming emotion flooding through her. She was pregnant. They were going to have a baby. She was going to be a mother. Min-ho was going to be a father. When Min-ho came home that evening, Georgina had candles lit throughout the living room and dinner waiting. But she couldn't maintain the surprise. The moment he walked through the door, she held up the test. I'm pregnant, she said, her voice shaking. We're having a baby. Min-ho froze, his briefcase dropping to the floor with a thud. For a moment he just stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then his face crumpled with emotion and he crossed the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees in front of her and pressing his face against her still flat stomach. "We're having a baby," he repeated, his voice broken. "You're pregnant. We're going to be parents. Are you happy?" she asked, running her fingers through his hair, her own tears falling freely. "Happy?" He looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. "Georgina, I don't have words. This is everything. You've given me everything. I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for this gift, for our family, for making my life so completely perfect." They held each other for a long time, crying and laughing and marveling at the miracle growing inside her, already planning nurseries and names and the future that suddenly felt even brighter. The pregnancy was healthy but eventful. Minho became impossibly overprotective, which was saying something given how protective he'd always been. He hired the best doctors in Seoul, ensuring Georgina had round-the-clock access to medical care. He attended every appointment, holding her hand during ultrasounds and asking detailed questions about fetal development. He read parenting books obsessively, preparing for fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to business deals. He prepared the nursery himself, refusing to let contractors do all the work. Georgina would find him painting walls at midnight, assembling cribs with instruction manuals spread around him, debating the safety features of different car seats with Jinwoo for hours. And every night before bed, he'd talk to her growing belly, his large hands gentle on her skin. "Hello, little one," he'd murmur, his lips pressed against her stomach. "It's your father. Your mother and I can't wait to meet you. We're preparing everything for your arrival. We have your room ready, your clothes picked out, more toys than any baby could possibly need. But more than any of that, we have so much love ready for you. You're already so wanted, so cherished. I promise you'll never doubt that. I promise to protect you, guide you, support you, and love you unconditionally. You're going to be amazing, just like your mother. I love you already, so much it terrifies me." Georgina would run her fingers through his hair, overwhelmed with love for this man who'd once been cold and distant but had become the warmest, most devoted husband and father-to-be she could imagine. 8.5 months later, on a spring evening similar to their wedding day, Georgina's water broke. Minho's controlled demeanor shattered immediately. He grabbed the hospital bag they'd had packed for weeks, helped her to the car with shaking hands, and drove to the hospital while trying to call her doctor, his mother, and her grandmother simultaneously. "Breathe," Georgina said, somehow calm despite her own pain. "Minho, breathe. I'm the one in labor and you look like you're about to pass out." "I'm fine," he said, though his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Are you okay? Is the baby okay? Should I drive faster?" "No, I should drive more carefully. Oh God, we're having a baby. We're having a baby right now." Despite her pain, Georgina laughed. "We'll be at the hospital in 2 minutes. Everything is going to be fine." Labor was long and difficult 18 hours that tested both of them. Minho stayed by her side through every contraction, every push, every moment of pain and exhaustion. He held her hand, whispered encouragement, wiped her forehead, and looked at her with such love and admiration that it gave her strength when she thought she had none left. "You're doing so well," he kept saying. "You're so strong, so brave. I'm in awe of you. Just a little more, my love. Our baby is almost here." When their daughter finally arrived, healthy and perfect, with a head full of dark curls and her mother's beautiful brown skin, Minho sobbed openly. The nurses placed the baby on Georgina's chest, and they both stared at her in wonder. This tiny miracle they'd created together. "She's perfect," Minho whispered, his hand gentle on his daughter's tiny back. "Georgina, she's absolutely perfect. Look what you did. Look what we made together. What should we name her?" Georgina asked, exhausted but radiant as she held their daughter. They'd debated names for months but never quite decided. Now, looking at their daughter's face, Minho said softly, "Jimin Ama Kang. Jimin for wisdom and cleverness. Ama for Saturday, the day she chose to enter the world and complete our family." "It's perfect," Georgina agreed. "Hello, Jimin. Welcome to the world, baby girl. We love you so much." Minho leaned down to kiss both his wife and daughter, his heart so full he thought it might burst. "Thank you," he whispered to Georgina. "Thank you for this gift, for our family, for everything." In the hospital room that night, with Jimin sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside them and Georgina resting against Minho's chest, they talked about their journey. "Do you remember the day I first saw you?" Minho asked softly, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. "Sleeping in that classroom, exhausted and beautiful and completely unaware you were about to change my life?" "I remember," Georgina said, smiling. "I woke up mortified, and then you started sitting next to me, and I thought you were the most arrogant, bossy, impossible man I'd ever met." "I was," he admitted with a soft laugh. "But you changed me, made me better, taught me what love really means. That it's not about control or possession, but partnership and trust and choosing someone every single day. You taught me too," she said, turning to look at him. "You taught me that I deserved to be loved, protected, cherished. You taught me that forever was possible, that fairy tales could be real. You gave me a family, a home, a future I'd stopped letting myself dream about." He kissed her gently, mindful of her exhaustion. "This is just the beginning, you know. We have a whole lifetime ahead of us. Watching Jimin grow. Maybe more children, if you want them, growing old together, building memories, facing whatever comes as a team. And I promise to love you through all of it, Georgina. Every day of that lifetime, to be the husband and father our family deserves." "And I promise to love you," she replied, her eyes heavy with exhaustion but bright with happiness. "Through everything, the beautiful moments and the difficult ones, forever." They sat in comfortable silence as dawn broke over Seoul, watching their daughter sleep. Two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. The billionaire heir who'd fallen for an exhausted girl in a classroom had found his forever. The struggling student who'd thought love was a luxury she couldn't afford had found her home. Together, they'd built something neither had known. They were looking for a love story that had conquered fear, danger, and doubt. A partnership built on respect, trust, and unwavering devotion. A family created from love so deep it had transformed them both. As Jimin stirred in her sleep, making the soft sounds that new parents memorize, Minho and Georgina looked at each other with tears in their eyes, knowing they'd been given the greatest gift of all. Each other, their daughter, their forever. And as the sun rose over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, their story continued, not ending, but beginning anew, stretching forward into a future bright with promise and boundless with love.